Alright, time to play Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X. What? What am I looking at? Oh my goodness. What? Inti, please. It's crazy to think that not even 2 years ago, the Mega Man franchise was considered dormant, with no new titles featuring the iconic blue bomber aside from a couple of collections. Fast forward to today, and we have Mega Man 11, Megaman-esque Legacy Collection 1 and 2, we just played a beta for the mobile title Megaman-esque Dive, and we have yet another collection and a new major Mega Man title in development to look forward to on the horizon. And that's not to mention all the merchandise, soundtracks, books, and manga that has come out recently. Mega Man Fever is building towards its peak once again, and amidst all the excitement, it might be easy to forget that one of the prime developers that has been delivering content to help scratch that itch to jump and shoot during the Blue Heroes 8-year hiatus is none other than Inti Creates. The same developer that brought us Mega Man 9 and 10, Mega Man 0, and Megaman-esque, which incidentally, those last two series are the focus of the recently announced Mega Man 0 and ZX Legacy Collection. But while Capcom is looking back at their past catalog, Inti Creates is looking forward with their own self-published flagship franchise that they have been building for the last 5 years, the Azure Striker Gunvolt series. And while GB himself will have to wait a while longer to celebrate his own 5th anniversary, series anti-hero and rival Copen is raring to go, with the first entry in his own spin-off series known as Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X. So, is the Adept Slayer's first solo outing truly the apex of 2D action? Or will we have to stamp an X on this one? There's only one way to find out. Let's rock! Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X takes place on seemingly its own separate timeline from the mainline Azure Striker Gunvolt games, which is no doubt going to make the question of whether this latest entry is canon to the rest of the series a hot topic amongst the fans. Instead of staying defeated, the evil organization Sumeragi that GB and Copen battled against in the first game is back in the antagonist role. The war between the Adepts, people who possess supernatural powers known as Septimas, and humans without Septimas, labeled as Minos, rages on into the future, where humanity has entered a new age where the Adepts number in the majority in society. Meanwhile, the few remaining Minos are being hunted and executed by Sumeragi and their elite soldiers, the Falcons, making their lives a literal nightmare. Yeah, things aren't looking good for the Minos. But that's where the hero of our story, Copen, who is technically a Minos himself, comes into the picture. Our edgy boy here has been fighting to protect the Minos from Sumeragi for a while by the time we catch up with him in the game, along with his partner, the combat pod Lola, who is also infused with the Muse Septima, allowing her to take on an angelic human form and sing the anime-like songs that shape up part of this series' identity that power up Copen when he needs it. Referred to as her idol mode, due to Copen's ongoing struggle against Sumeragi and Lola's music videos that she uploads to the Undernet. Oh no. The duo has gained quite the reputation among the Minos, as tales of their exploits are whispered among them. Tales of the Luminous Avenger X and the Muse of Hope, who fight for the sake of all Minos. Our story begins as Copen investigates the ruins of a city in search for clues as to the whereabouts of something called the Butterfly Effect. Along the way, he and Lola encounters Sumeragi troops and one of their falcons, Blade, who possesses a threat with their electrical Septima. Remind you of anyone? When things get dicey, a young Minos girl named Kohaku comes to Copen's rescue and they escape together to the underground hideout where Copen meets up with the rest of the children in hiding from ShadowRockZX. There, he learns that they are the last of the Minos left in the area, as everyone else has been executed. Upon hearing their story and being asked to stay with them, Copen agrees to help the Minos children in exchange for using their hideout as a base of operations in the fight against Sumeragi and to search for the butterfly effect. Kohaku is the leader of this group of children, but she's your obligatory lolly companion that this series has a lot to say the least.
Lolly.
They're everywhere.
They're like cockroaches.
Yeah. She acts as the cheerleader of the cast, always bringing her bright and peppy personality to conversations to cheer everyone up. She's a real sweetheart and also a novice mechanic, who while far removed from Copen's skill level, still allows her to repair equipment and help him out with maintenance on his gear. But wait a minute, what in the world is Kohaku wearing? Oh, what the heck? How old is she supposed to be?
14歳だよ。ね、同じくらいだよね。
Oh no! FBI, open up! The other three children in the group, Kyota, Jin, and Maria, don't get nearly as much of a spotlight, but they still chime in during cutscenes and the series' staple optional dialogues. They didn't stand out to me as particularly interesting, beyond them just being children with their own quirks. Kyota is a typical enthusiastic, passionate young boy, Jin is the level-headed one, fulfilling the nerd role, and Maria is a shy tsundere. Kohaku, on the other hand, definitely steals the show, and will receive the most character development of the Minos children. As for the Luminous Avenger X and genius mechanic himself, Copen, anyone who has played Azure Striker Gunvolt 1 and 2 will remember Copen for being an edgelord and a total jerk to everyone around him except for his human family, which he did care for. In those games, he displayed a fierce, racist attitude against any adepts that he met, including Gunvolt. He would often roast adept characters he met. At least he picked a fancy coffin. Which was occasionally hilarious, I won't lie. And although he is supposed to be a man of science, he would often tell them that he would bring the judgment of God down upon them. In addition, he would generally not listen to reason, and he also did stupid things as he was blinded by his own hatred. Granted, he has his reasons for being this way. For example, his father was apparently killed by the hands of an adept, but still, man, Copen's personality, as portrayed in Gunvolt 1 and 2, made him a thoroughly unlikable character in the eyes of many people, which sort of worked while he was just a rival character to GB, but then he became a protagonist too. So now that Copen is the solo protagonist for the first time with his own game and everything, is he still the big bully that nobody likes? Actually, no. Copen still retains some of that edge to his character, but you can tell that Inti has gone back to the drawing board to dull those edges for his first starring role. He has actually mellowed out quite a bit since his last appearance in Gunvolt 2. The biggest change is Copen's demeanor in general. He is hesitant to show it at times, but this guy has gotten soft. And not even just to his fellow Minos, but at times he actually shows some respect to his enemies too, which is freaking wild. Gone are the days of Copen shouting insults or roasting an adept he just killed. In fact, the religious references he was known for are heavily toned down, if not removed completely. Instead, he tends to stay quiet and keep to himself in most exchanges, and in a couple instances, he even shows a hint of remorse or compassion for the foes that he defeated, even if they are one of the adepts that he so hates. Although in this game he doesn't really go on ranting about how much he hates adepts anymore, so who knows if he still does really. Then there's his relationship with the Minos children, where he takes on a big brother role to them, offering advice, help, protection, and showing care for them. Copen has definitely grown kinder and wiser with age. This version of him, as portrayed in Luminous Avenger X, is a character that I can actually respect, which is a lot more than what I could say about him in previous titles. Good on you, guy. As for Copen's reliable partner, Lola, Her character is identical to how she was in her first appearance in Gunvolt 2. Even though she is a robot, she is not very robotic at all actually, having a playful and caring personality while supporting her boss and those around her. In fact, they have severely toned down that robotic filter that they put over her voice in Gunvolt 2, so the dulcet tones of Lola's voice come through clearer than ever before, and that translates to the songs she performs as well. A welcome change indeed. Then we have Sumeragi's 7 elite soldiers, the Falcons. I will allow you the chance to meet each of them in the game yourself, or you can watch my previous videos on them if you want to learn more. But I found this to be a colorful cast of Gunvolt bosses this time around. They are all equally interesting and fun to fight in their own rights, and I like how many of their motives for fighting for Sumeragi is not so black and white. There's Rebellio, who wishes to have his criminal sentence pardoned so that he can see his family again. Bacto, who's only a falcon to help his mafia family out. Then there's Stella and this 9, and their dynamic. Stella became a falcon so that Sumeragi would not take away this 9, an android who somehow got sentinel powers for the purposes of being experimented on. It's some tragic and depressing stuff, like a lot of things are in this game, let's be real, which helps the Falcons feel like real people with real goals. I can't help but feel a little sorry for them. Beyond that, I also enjoyed what each of the Falcons' personalities brought to the table. Krim, or Crab Boy, thinks explosions is art. Like a certain robot master, Isola's boss fight involves energy bits following her around like fans at a concert. And I love this 9's bullfighter moves and aesthetic. And I like how each of the Falcons are based on each of these zodiac signs. These characters are just a lot of fun. Unfortunately, however, the Falcons aren't as fleshed out compared to the Adepts in previous games. This is because the mid-battle dialogues that played out while you were fighting in Gunvolt 1 and 2 are nowhere to be found in Luminous Avenger X. This applies to the stages too, where characters use to chat as you traverse the level. That's all gone too. Instead, Lola will talk to Copen in a tiny text box with preset messages, giving tips, cheering the player on for chaining combos, pointing it out to you if a boss is hit with their weakness, and other gameplay related things, but not really story related things. Of course, the messages do repeat a ton, such as "Excellent! Yeah, go for the combo!" So if Lola starts to get on your nerves, you can shut her up through the options menu. Now I don't mind that the mid-stage and boss dialogues are gone per se, since in the past games, the text box did take up literally half the screen, and now that is out of the way, I can just focus on the battle or stage at hand, and play the game. But it does mean that we are missing out on some additional lore that they could have added in otherwise. At the very least, the game makes up for this a bit with cutscenes at the start of each section of the stage. And of course you can skip all those cutscenes with the start button. So if you don't care about story, you don't have to worry about it at all. Overall, I do like the cast of characters in Luminous Avenger X, and I did enjoy the story as its own self-contained tale that you don't need to play Gunvolt 1 or 2 to understand necessarily. Playing them will of course give you greater appreciation for some Easter eggs and other things, although the main plot is slow to get rolling, with nothing significant happening until you hit the midpoint and finale of the game. Oh, and you bet that in true Gunvolt fashion, there are going to be some twists and WTF moments waiting for you to discover in this story that I would dare not spoil for anyone playing for the first time. One of the plot twists is something that I saw coming since I saw the first trailers, like from a million light years away. And not to mention the game makes it rather obvious early on. But the other surprises in the game turned the game's tone on its head and threw me for a loop, leaving me going either, "Oh, I should have known," or just straight up, "What the heck?" It'll definitely change the way you look at this game's story and certain little details and quirks that may not have made sense up to that point. It's actually brilliant in that way, but it's definitely still weird. Y'all are not ready for this. Luminous Avenger X is presented in stylish 2D pixel art fashion. I say it every time I talk about NT Creates games, but seriously, they do incredible sprite work, among the best in the business. Even though Copen's sprite is mostly recycled from Gunvolt 2, I still have to sit back and admire the animations of the pods circling around him from time to time. Of course, the new character sprites and special effects look awesome too. Since Luminous Avenger X is the first Gunvolt game to be built from the ground up for HD consoles, NT was able to take advantage of the significantly more powerful hardware to add some extra visual flair. It may not look like an obvious improvement at first glance over the Striker Pack ports of Gunvolt 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch, which themselves were based on the Nintendo 3DS originals, but stage backgrounds are more detailed this time around, the character portraits are larger and higher quality, the user interface and text looks sharp, and flashier visual effects were added, like the transparency effects on Crim's shield, or the explosions when the Falcons are defeated. It's the little things that set Luminous Avenger X apart from its predecessors visually. What has remained mostly the same from previous titles, however, is how the story is presented. All dialogue is presented through text boxes accompanied by character renders, with the occasional beautiful piece of artwork. Basic, but what else do you expect from an indie title? But a big plus to the presentation is that literally every line of dialogue in the game is spoken with superb voice acting, albeit it's all in Japanese. I do hope the Gunvolt series may include some dubs in other languages for the rest of the world one day, but for now, the effort is definitely commendable. Although I do miss the variations of mugshots from the past games that were used to show the characters' emotions, there's none of that here, with most of the character renders remaining static all the time, which isn't the best way to convey the tone of certain scenes when you have a happy-go-lucky picture of Kohaku on screen at all times, while she is discussing more serious topics. You really have to listen in on the voices while reading to get a feel for the tone in the room. On the bright side, the techno-sounding musical soundtrack that wouldn't sound out of place in any other Gunvolt game, which carries the story and gameplay forward, is quite good actually. I definitely found myself humming a couple of the stage tunes as I was playing. I won't say the tunes made a big impact on me out the gate, but replaying stages later on, I listen in and I'm like, oh man, this is actually pretty catchy. But the real standouts in the soundtrack are the new and returning anime-style vocal songs performed by Lola. The main theme, Luminous Promise, is quite epic, and does a good job of getting you pumped up when it comes on. Heck, most if not all the songs do that, they are that good. Luminous Avenger X, like its predecessors, is a Megaman-esque 2D action game that follows the same basic formula where you can choose which stages you want to tackle first, defeat the boss, acquire the special weapon to use on the other stages, and rinse and repeat until the game is done. Copen's main weapon of choice is his trusty sidearm, which is rather weak by itself, but thanks to his special armor, Copen can consume bullets to air dash great distances in all 8 directions. Bullets can be recovered easily on the ground or stopping from the air by double tapping down, or by bouncing off of walls and enemies, keeping the air dash chain going. By dashing into his adversaries, Copen tags them, which then allows him to unleash powerful homing shots from any direction with his gun. This, my friends, is Copen's gameplay flow. Tag an enemy by bumping into them, then dispatch them with your gun or EX weapon. It's basically a reverse Mighty No. 9. Integrates have designed the stage layouts and enemy placement based on Copen's moveset as well, allowing for many opportunities to dash from enemy to enemy or wall to wall without ever stopping and touching the ground, as he just zips across the stage. His high-flying gameplay is a blast. Copen is perhaps the closest the Gunvolt series gets to a Mega Man equivalent, even more so than the titular character of the series, thanks to his EX weapon system, which he creates based on the setimas of the adepts that he defeats. He then installs them into Lola's AB drive. Copen starts out with a Stellar Spark, which is based on GV's Azure Striker setima, hitting enemies with electric shocks, and also giving Copen access to the signature Flash Field, which automatically protects him from projectiles anytime the EX weapon gauge is full, no matter which ability is equipped. One more ability he shares with GV is Pervasion, which protects Copen from all damage at the cost of 2 bullets, which means you could be practically invincible as long as you are careful and reload often. Copen will acquire the rest of the EX weapons by defeating adepts throughout the game, and in true Blue Bomber fashion, the adepts have their own attributes and weaknesses to certain EX weapons as well, creating the classic rock paper scissors relationship between them. EX weapon weaknesses have been expanded over Gunvolt 2. In Gunvolt 2, it was harder to detect weaknesses because they merely dealt more damage, but in Luminous Avenger X, the right EX weapon will have other more visible effects on the bosses. For example, did you know that Krim is just like Armor Armadillo from Megaman-esque, and that when his weakness is used against him, he loses his armor and is left completely defenseless? That is perhaps the most extreme case, but you can definitely use EX weapons to knock bosses out of their attacks. Not all of them, but a couple of the bosses do suffer from Spark Mandrill syndrome because of it. The EX weapon lineup this time is actually really cool. The standouts for me were Orbital Edge, that can easily dispatch enemies in close range, and Rising Cyclone, that is a powerful utility weapon for both vertical coverage and propelling you in the air. Anchor Nexus and Photon Detonator are decent weapons too. Then there is Shroud Spear that can immobilize enemies so you can walk past them, or set them up for certain death by switching over to Orbital Edge. EX weapons can be swapped to the shoulder buttons, or you can assign up to 5 hotkeys for your favorites to each right stick input. Speaking of menu options, can I just say that I am so glad that an indie Mega-esque title has finally allowed me to set dash to the ZL trigger right from the launch of the game without an update or a patch. Boy does it feel good. It's like my pointless complaining about this over the last couple years has finally been heard. Thank you, Based Inti. Anyway, Copen still has one more trick up his sleeve, and that is his companion, Lola, who, as we touched on before, has the power of the Muse. Luminous Avenger X, like past games, has a focus on score running, so to encourage players to play well, if you build up over 1,000 kudos points by racking up combo bonuses for defeating a string of enemies without touching the ground, finishing with an EX weapon, and more things, Lola will transform into her idol mode and the game goes full on anime as she sings her songs for Copen. Lola's idol mode abilities have been expanded greatly over Gunvolt 2 as well. New to Luminous Avenger X are Copen's overdrive abilities that are only active while Lola is in idle mode. These abilities can give Copen buffs such as half damage, HP regeneration, increased damage, and unlimited bullets. Overdrive abilities and an assortment of other upgrades for Copen that don't require idle mode can be purchased by spending coins in the customization shop. That can be accessed from your base, or surprisingly enough, even mid-mission by hopping into the pause menu. Neat! What's also neat is the fact that NT has removed the need to collect specific materials to craft things. Nope, this time you only need to have enough money to purchase the upgrade. Which, thank goodness. It cuts down on a lot of the tedious grinding that the past games have had, which I don't think suits a short game like this in the first place. That said, you will still find that upgrades are expensive, so you are still encouraged to replace stages to grind for money. Fine enough, but still pretty bleh for when you're just wanting to play the game straight through. Copen also has access to his SP skill, Twin Shredder, where he teams up with Lola for an epic double attack that clears the screen. Use it wisely though, because it does have to recharge each time it is used, and you do get a 500 point kudos bonus for finishing enemies with it. I always love the animations that plays before the attack, with the characters basically saying, "Here comes my ultimate attack! Oh boy, you're gonna get it now!" It's so anime like everything else, of course, but I love it. And that's right, the Falcon members and the other bosses in the game have their own ultimate SP skills to use against you too. Think of it as their desperation attack that they use as a last ditch effort. It's flashy and cool to see each skill in action. The RPG-like level up system from past games also returns in Luminous Avenger X. But unfortunately for Copen, unlike GV, he does not learn any new SP skills as he grows stronger. He is stuck with the Twin Shredder for the whole game. Heck, he even loses his healing skill he used to have in GV2, which leaves him with absolutely no healing options in a pinch, unless you get lucky with Anthem, which we'll talk about in just a sec. Thankfully, I never felt the need for the healing skill, at least until I reached the final boss, so it wasn't a huge detriment, but still kinda weird that it's not an option. Instead, leveling up only increases Copen's maximum health, and possibly attack power to scale the enemies, but I'm not actually 100% sure on that. But otherwise, yeah, it's pretty basic. I would have liked to see some different skills for Copen, but I suppose that's what his EX weapons are for. Also new to this game are Lola's two new forms. The first is her Awaken mode, which works exactly like the Anthem mechanic in past games, except she now gets a new angelic-like design to accompany it this time. Whenever Copen's health reaches 0, there is a random chance that Lola will revive him with her Anthem, to the tune of a remix of Igniter from Gunvolt 2. Copen is revived with full health, his overdrive ability is permanently activated, and he will have unlimited bullets at his disposal. Anthem is a pretty epic last ditch effort if you happen to die, in case you thought this game couldn't get any more anime. But like I said, Awaken mode is a completely random occurrence whether it activates or not. In order to increase your chances, you'll have to chat with Lola and the Minos children by using the talk option at your home base frequently. You see, Copen does have friends. Right now, forever. He only knows one thing for sure. The power of friendship will save us behind in desperate times. Or something like that. Then there is the 8th EX weapon, Darkness Trigger, which I still wish they dubbed a Devil Trigger, that would have been so great. Think of this ability as the side beast button from Mega Man Battle Network 6, or like using Devil Trigger in the Devil May Cry series. Except you cannot cancel out of this form once you unleash it. Lola goes completely berserk as she enters Darkness mode, taking on a more devil-like appearance. In Darkness mode, her specs are pushed beyond her limits, giving Copen unlimited energy for his EX weapons, and upgrading them to more powerful dark versions. Don't do dark chips, kids. However, using Darkness Trigger is risky because it comes at the cost of Copen only being able to attack locked on enemies, and whenever he is not locked on, he will continuously take damage. I personally like to use Darkness Trigger as a last ditch effort or as a boss killer, but it is definitely a powerful form, and the continuous damage won't kill you outright unless you get nailed by an enemy or a trap while you're at low health. And remember that Pervasion will still protect you. So I am interested in seeing how players more confident in their skills will use Darkness mode. All the gameplay in the entire game runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second, with no noticeable slowdown on the Nintendo Switch in both docked and handheld mode. The only slight slowdown I noticed is the same thing that would hang up in Gunvolt 2. The game can choke up a little bit when Copen performs his ground pound near an enemy. However, this has been heavily optimized over Gunvolt 2, so it's not nearly as big of an issue as it once was, not by a long shot. Otherwise, Copen controls very well. I don't have any equipment to test it, but I did not notice any input lag or sound delay in the game. Copen just controls and plays as he should, and I had no problem working my way around his air dashes and weapons, as the same control scheme from Gunvolt 2 translates over seamlessly. Luminous Avenger X straight up feels good to play, up there with the best 2D action games. With all these great abilities up his arsenal, in terms of the game's difficulty, it's no secret that Copen is rather overpowered from the word go. His mobility options are almost too good, making most platforming challenges trivial, and allowing him to dodge enemy attacks with ease. That's not even mentioning his Pervasion ability, which shields him from all harm as long as he reloads his bullets. Couple that in with the fact that he can exploit boss weaknesses with his EX weapons and his overdrive abilities, and you have a game that has a cakewalk for the majority of the adventure. It took me about 3 hours to clear the main story, and that was while taking my time reading all the story scenes and checking things out like the optional dialogues. During that time, I never died once. That is, until I reached the final boss, who gave me a run for my money. No spoilers, but that was certainly a challenge. Quite the difficulty spike compared to the rest of the game. But yeah, for the most part, Luminous Avenger X is the same as the other games. If you are playing casually, it's going to be really easy going for most of it. The real challenge comes from achieving high score runs. You can earn up to a S+ rank, and in order to get that, you're going to need to rack up kudos points by chaining air combos on enemies, and generally playing well without getting hit. Basically a perfect run. And yes, getting hit still counts against you even if Pervasion eats the hit. So you truly do have to get good. You can choose from 3 difficulty modes for kudos points. The default one is Caution, where you lose all of your kudos if you get hit 3 times, and you get a moderate score bonus at the end of the stage. Fearless mode gives you a giant bonus to your score and kudos gain, but you lose all of your kudos after just 1 hit. On the flip side, Gutless mode lets you keep your kudos no matter what, making maintaining idle mode a breeze. but you will get no score bonus at the end and kudos gain is slower. It's up to you to choose which mode suits your fancy, but Fearless is the way to go if you're going for a perfect run. Good luck with that though, because while playing casually is a walk in the park, trying to no damage run this game will prove difficult. Inti Creates has designed the stages, enemies, and bosses around Copen's abilities, so they will be ready for you. Bosses often have attacks that damage the majority of the screen, leaving you only a small window to dodge. There are even a couple SP skills where I'm like, wait, how do I dodge this? Though there's nothing quite as messy as the SP skills from old Gunvolt games, I'll say that much. You'll have to be quick on your feet, memorize the stages, enemy placement, and boss patterns to do well. Oh, and don't forget, if you want to keep your kudos, do not take any of the checkpoint markers unless you need to cash in your kudos. Because if you do get hit enough to lose all your kudos, and you had a giant score going, you're going to lose all of that. So figure things out as you go, basically. But one thing that might help you get more kudos points is the bonus emblems that are scattered around the stages. There are 4 bonus emblems per stage, and collecting one will grant you 500 kudos points. So that means finding 2 of them gives you automatic idle mode right there. And if you do find all 4, you get an additional 1000 kudos points on top of that, which is a lot of kudos. Of course, this is a change from past Gunvolt games too, because as we touched on before, Luminous Avenger X no longer has the material system where you would collect materials to craft items. And that was the purpose of medals in the past, was for getting more materials. But since there's no more materials, we have bonus emblems, and they just give you kudo points as far as I know. We're still testing if they actually unlock anything, so if we do find out, we'll definitely let you know. Kohaku does mention that bonus emblems are allowing her to create bonus items, but when I go into the customize menu, I don't actually see anything new that I can buy. So once again, we'll have to get back to you on that. On the whole, the stages are well designed and fun to zip through with Copen's high flying skills. Even though some of the stages do have similar aesthetics to each other, they stand out enough, but maybe not a lot either. But anyways, the stages never felt like they were unfair. If I ever messed up, I knew it was my fault, not the game. I have an absolute blast playing as Copen, I dare say more than GV. And it was great to play a game tailor-made around Copen's abilities rather than when the game is split up between 2 characters. The added bosses might be a tad too crazy for me to feasibly do a no damage run, but casually they are fun if a bit easy to defeat, and I enjoy learning their patterns and how they work. My only gripes with the stages is how the final stages are mostly throwaway stages for the typical boss gauntlet, and in one instance, one of the stages even rehashes half of an earlier stage, a lot like what Megaman-esque 2 did with its last Sigma stage. The bosses' story contained within helped to make up for it, but that part of the game did let me down for sure from a gameplay perspective. Thankfully, the meat of the game, which is the 7 Falcon member stages, are full length and very well done. Although I was bummed out that you can only choose from 3 of the Falcons at a time throughout the story. I was hoping it would be more like Gunvolt 1, where all 6 atoms would be available from the start, but sadly it's more like Gunvolt 2 and how everything is split up. So sadly, nope. Now that my gripes are out of the way, some lasting things I haven't touched on yet. I like how the results screen after a mission looks way cooler than before, and it looks even better the higher rank you get. You can also bring up your best score and time for a stage from the mission select menu at any time, so if you forget to record your high score, it will always be there for you to access. Awesome! For speed and score runners, there is a score attack mode you can do for each stage, and it will record the top 3 best scores and times. There doesn't seem to be an online leaderboard component though, so that's a shame. Another nifty feature is the jukebox, where you can choose which Alola songs you want her to sing in each stage. A nice change, since in the past you had to equip abilities to play a certain song. Well, with that said, we have reached the end of our Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X review. Should you pick this game up? Heck yeah, you should! Luminous Avenger X proves itself to truly be an apex of 2D action, standing alongside the likes of Mega Man as a high quality game with a unique gameplay style that you won't find anywhere else, and I personally had a blast with. A colorful cast of characters, a story that may not end up being canon to the main plot, but it still has some shocking twists that are fun. A great soundtrack, and of course, lots and lots of anime. The only major negative thing I could put against this game is the lackluster final stages and the length. But the length is typical for Gunvolt games anyways. Anything else is just a small gripe if anything. Of course, you can take what I say in this review and judge for yourself. But as for me, I give Copen's first solo adventure an 8 out of 10. Very solid game. I'm looking forward to what Integrates will do with Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 and Luminous Avenger X2 in the future. Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X is available now on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and PC via Steam. Unfortunately, the Xbox One version that was in the works did not make it in time for launch because of a game-breaking bug. But Integrates is working on that, and the Xbox One version should come out as soon as possible. Digitally it is available for $15, which for that price you do get a very good game. For now though, thanks for watching. For more on Azure Striker Gunvolt, Luminous Avenger X, and all things Mega Man and Mega-esque, stay tuned to ShadowRockZX. And until next time, rock on. Have a great day.